Welcome to ATCP and the Canopy, the official video podcast of the Association of Tree Care Professionals. I'm your host, Austin Lee, and our mission here is to elevate the standards of our industry by talking to the people who live and breathe tree care. Joining me today is Ty Picard. Ty is the owner of Top Tier in Sulphur, Louisiana. Ty, thanks for climbing into the canopy with us today. How's it going, brother?
I'm going good. Thanks for having me. Very excited to talk to you today and help the ATCP in any way we can.
Yeah, man. I'm been on like a little sabbatical for the podcast, so I'm excited to get back in the swing of things. And I know we were talking a little bit before hopping on the show here, so I have a feeling this could be a really good conversation. We're really happy to have you.
Yeah, I get to be the comeback kid.
Comeback kid, I like it. So with that, tell us a little bit about the comeback kid. For those of us who don't know you super well, what's your story? How'd you get into tree care?
Well, what version do you want? The long version, the short version?
Whatever version you feel so compelled to tell.
Man, so I started back in 2020. I was 20 years old, from Southwest Louisiana, Lake Charles area. So if you're looking at the state, we're in the bottom left corner of the boot. So being so far south, we tend to get hit with hurricanes. And Hurricane Laura came, and it was a Cat 5. And, just about everybody I know, including myself, lost their house, shops, most of their belongings. And that was kind of my starting point. So at the time, I graduated. I was homeschooled previously and had graduated in 2018. I was ahead in homeschool, taking classes at a local community college. And I graduated high school I got my diploma and a 2-year associate's degree in business administration at the same time. But I knew I always wanted to own my own business. I just didn't know what. So my girlfriend at the time, now she's my wife, her stepdad was the owner of an AC business, and that's what I was doing. I was working at the AC business. Great business, 5 or 6 employees, so a smaller, small business type. And I went in just guns a-blazing, really wanting to grow the business and make it as big as it can be. And I realized that wasn't their vision. They were happy with where they were at and didn't really want to grow much bigger. And I didn't necessarily see room for me in that equation. So I went, and that was about 2019, early 2020, when the stock market was kind of doing the crazy things it was doing. And I got into to trading, day trading and stuff. And I was making some decent money. But my dad is a jack of all trades. And he runs the local water plant in Corliss, or a little city where we live. Grew up just doing everything with my hands. I was an outside kid, played outside, hunting and fishing. Played if I was outside playing, I was in the back making animal traps and building tents and survival shelters, and that's just outside was my thing. Shifting back to where I was at that time, trading, I was sitting behind a computer, made some decent money. I mean, it was mentally, it was a lot of work, but I was okay at it. But I knew that I can't do this forever, So about that time was when Hurricane Laura hit, and we didn't have any internet because it wiped out all the towers and everything. So I had to do something to make money, right? I just kind of started paying attention, looking around, and noticed that there were lots and lots of tree companies, a lot of them from Florida, that had come into town chasing the storm. And man, it felt like everybody that I knew that was getting tree work done had a bad story about it. Like they charged them all this money and didn't finish, or they charged them a whole bunch of money and didn't show up at all. Heck, there was one lady, and now that I've been through Joe's class and I'm part of the ATCP, I understand now. But there was one lady, she had a limb about that size, about that long on her house, and supposedly the tree company took it off for free and charged her insurance like $10,000 or $15,000 or something, and provided some fake pictures that wasn't actually on her house. I was like all these horror stories. It's like, man, I could come in and do a good job, actually follow through with what I say that I'm going to do, and not charge some outrageous prices and make a decent living. And at the time, a lot of the really positive role models that I had, my dad, I had an uncle that works for a really big pipeline company. They were like, man, you really don't know how to do this kind of stuff. You don't really know a lot about business. It's probably not going to work. You probably shouldn't do it. You don't have the right truck. You don't have the right setup. You don't want to just chase this thing that's going to be what's the word? When you do it until you get the next shiny object syndrome, where you do it right now and then just go on to the next thing. So they were worried about that, and almost convinced me not to do it. But I had one of my best friends, his name is Hunter, and another uncle, my Uncle Jeff. They were like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, it doesn't work. Okay, you figure it out and do something different. What are you doing now? Trading, but I don't really like trading, so I want to do something different anyway. So that's how I went into it. I was like, you know what, you're right. I believed in myself too. I was like, I can do it. I do know these things. I do know certain parts of business, and I know that above all else, I have character and integrity, and that's what a lot of these other, companies that are coming in that I see that they lack. So at least if I can have that, I can figure the rest out, right? I mean, that was the beginning of it. On September 9th of 2020, I filed for my articles of incorporation. I got insurance through an online company that I probably don't even remember the name of. Nope, sure don't. I don't remember the name of it. And I started. So in Louisiana at the time, and still today, you have to have an arborist license to do tree work. It's a state program. You go through, take the test, and you get your arborist license. Well, the internet was not very clear about that, so I didn't know that I had to have that license. So I operated for a short period of time without that license, and then another local tree company turned me in, and Louisiana Department of Ag and Forestry reached out and was like, hey, we heard you've been operating without an arborist license. You really have to have that. I was like, I'm so glad that you called me, because I started out this company wanting to do it the right way, but didn't know how. The resources weren't really out there for me to figure it out. And they were like, beautiful. Well, here's what you have to do. Here's the test you take. We'll send you a link. So they sent me the link. I studied, went and took the test, got my arborist license, and we kept on rolling. From there, I picked up a local guy. His name was Coby. He's actually still our very first employee, and I still have him today. 5 years later. So Coby's been through it all with me, and picked him up as an employee. He was a climber, self-taught, learned off of YouTube. He had a cousin that did it a little bit, and man, I just liked him, and we worked well together. He's one heck of a hard worker. It just kind of grew from there. We stumbled a lot at first, but always prioritized the customers, always prioritizing doing the job right, following through with what we said we were going to do. Even when we bid stuff that should have been bid for hire, we still completed the work, and that's a notch on our belt, and don't do that again for next time. But we still completed the work, and did what we said we were going to do, charge what we said we were going to charge, even when we lost money. So everybody has it. You have a couple jobs that took longer, or you didn't plan the amount of loads correctly, or things just happen. But instead of letting my customer carry that burden, I took it on the chin, and let's not make a mistake again, and move forward. And then when we did make mistakes on a job site too, we were always super careful. But when we did make mistakes on a job site, maybe if we cracked some concrete, or I don't know, if we damaged a gutter, we always owned it. That was my golden rule. Like, if we're not going to try to hide anything, if this happened, we're going to own it and fix it. And that's just what it's going to be. Because should the customer find a damaged gutter after we leave, we think we got away with it. Maybe they never said anything, and now they have a vision of us that we damage things and don't own it, and we're liars, and they're never going to call me again. But not only are they never going to call me again, they're going to tell everybody they know not to use us, because if something happens, we're not going to take care of it. So that's something I just recognized in the beginning. I don't know, I hold myself to a really high moral standard. And from the beginning, we still hold that same value to this day. We own it, we fix it, and we move on.
So you had the basic ingredients, the will to learn, the grit to kind of get it started. Now, I'm sure your dad and your uncle weren't super off base, like, hey, you don't know a single thing about this. You touched on a few of them, but what were some of the big things, like in that first year in business, that surprised you? Like, where were the pitfalls or traps that you ran into that were most difficult to overcome?
Man, just wrapping my head around that first year was a bit of a blur. Balance is a good word that comes to mind. Not overworking yourself to the point where you don't have a personal life, you don't have any time for yourself, or any way to decompress, right? Was definitely just gung-ho from the beginning. Excitement got me through the first year. Some hard lessons and stuff was definitely, having the right equipment for the job, doing things with Amazon equipment, or hand-me-downs and just cheap stuff isn't the way whenever you're trying to do it professionally. Which I say that, when I started the business, I had an F-150, and I had about $2,500 in the bank. And That's just about all I had. My parents didn't invest anything into the business. At the best parents in the world. They're the type of parents that I think everybody should have and would benefit from. There wasn't a whole lot. They made sure we were taken care of. Every need that we had was met. Wants were on our own, and they gave us opportunities to earn money to get our wants, right? So, but not much was just handed. So I started the business on my own. A lot of people to this day, a friend of mine, his dad is just, this doesn't really bother me. It is what it is, but I just think it's funny. His dad is absolutely convinced that either my parents are rich, we got a really, really big business loan from a private investor, or we just convinced a stupid bank to let us have $500,000, because there's no way we can be as young as we are, as successful as we are, with the equipment and the things that we have. And none of that's true. I started with an F-150 and a chainsaw. So I started with an F-150 and $2,500, which most of it I spent on a Stihl 461 chainsaw. So that's how I got my start. But to finish answering your question, right equipment for the right job, figuring out how long things actually take. Hey, I'll do this for $1,500, and then it ends up taking you 2 days. You probably didn't make much money. The equipment. I had been on a little bit of equipment beforehand, but I had to learn on the job. I hadn't really run skid steers. I ran an excavator like maybe 2-3 times in my life, but when I think back on it, it was my Uncle Todd and my dad that were kind of on the fence of like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe, like, thinking back, like, I don't know what convinced me that I could do this, because I had never really run equipment. We had never done I had handled a chainsaw, right? But I'd never done like commercial cutting trees down and done that kind of thing. So, it really was a lot of on the job training, learning. And then I just committed myself to doing it the right way. So, it was a lot of, looking for online resources or anybody I was not embarrassed to ask a friend of mine who owned a small tree service company. His dad owned it, and he was kind of working in it. I literally asked him to come to a job site and show me how to fell trees. I was not scared to ask for help. I wasn't embarrassed. It just is what it is, right? I love when people need the help and ask me. So if you don't know nothing, how do you know if you don't ask? So that was some of the few lessons from the first year, among marketing constraints and just overall professionalism and little things like that. A lot of little things.
No, you nailed like some of the big ones that we kind of come back to over. It's like lack of limiting beliefs, right? There was no reason or like experience or background that led you to believe that you could do it. You just did anyway, despite the fact that a lot of people told you couldn't, shouldn't, and wouldn't.
Right.
So, that's definitely one. Like with that comes like a lack of fear of failure is what I'm hearing, right? Like you definitely failed quite a bit and there was stuff you didn't know, but you're like, oh, I can learn on the fly, right? What's the worst that can happen? And in tree care, interestingly, there is a lot of bad stuff that can happen, but in business, what's the worst that can happen if I try? And as long as I try to do it as safely as I can, then I'll figure it out on the way. So sounds like a lot of that served you quite well. What was the horror story, right? Tell me that first big job. You mentioned underquoting. You mentioned not having the right equipment. Is there a job that you just took on where you're like, man, we really bit off more than we could chew with this one, that kind of stands out in your memory from the early innings?
Man, it's funny, and I'm almost a little embarrassed to say it, but at the beginning, I just thought an excavator was the thing. That was the way, right? You got to have like a 35, a 50 excavator was my bread and butter. That's how I was going to get my jobs done, right? But you have the problem that a skid steer solves of you can't transport material, not a lot of it, not very fast with an excavator. So I bought a 4-wheeler with a 14-foot trailer, and we put material on that 14-foot trailer. I do think it's important to recognize when I started my business, it was like we were under state of emergency, right? We were still under state of emergency, like all the trees and stuff, clearing debris was all going to the road still. So I didn't have to worry about like, how am I going to haul this stuff off? It was just get it done, get it to the road. So that's what we did. We used an excavator and a 4-wheeler and pulled things to the road and offloaded it with the excavator or by hand. And when I say we, I'm talking like myself and Coby, or like myself and my brother, if I could convince him to come help and pay him, right? The first one that comes to mind It was supposed to be, I don't even remember the number. I remember, I can picture where it's at. I'd have to scroll and scroll to find the original estimate, but a smaller job. I mean, $2,000-$3,000. And me and Coby were supposed to be done in a day. I don't even remember all of the things that happened on that job, but I know that the sun was going down and we were like, oh my gosh, we still have hours left. We had work booked the next day. What do we do? Well, I don't want to tell this customer we're not coming because we're going to lose the job. I'm really terrified of losing jobs at this point. Long story short, me and Coby were out there till about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night doing this job. And I can just remember, I mean, we were in the sun all day long, doing everything mostly by hand with an excavator and a four-wheeler with a trailer. And it was just a long, miserable day. And I didn't know regular wages in the tree world, but I thought making $250 a day was pretty solid. And that's what I was paying Coby. And I paid him $250, and heck, we were out there for 2 days worth of work. So I gave him some extra money and was like, here's the sucky part. We got to wake up and do it again tomorrow. But tomorrow, we're not staying here until 12 o'clock. So that's probably the first horror story, is just timing. Being out there for, we start early. We start before the sun comes up. So, 5:30, 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. at night. That's a really long day.
Did the customer come out at some point and be like, hey, you guys are still here? Or are they like, why is this chainsaw running in my neighborhood? Like 11 o'clock. They were like,
hey, y'all can come back tomorrow. We're like, no, we can't. We have to finish it.
No,
okay,
we can't.
Okay. You're all good. Go ahead.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned, so it definitely was a boon for your business, I'm sure, starting out in that state of emergency. Made some of the more complicated parts of moving material, like you mentioned, a little bit easier. How did you maintain the business, or how was transitioning the business out of that state of emergency? Because I know like a lot of guys, I talk to guys in Florida and they mention hurricane comes through, you have this huge volume of work temporarily, it's a surge, it's a huge boon for your business. And then all the trees are cut, everything's moved along, and the work kind of slows down for a period of time. Did you experience that? And how did you anchor yourself going through that period when things slowed down?
Man, I actually recognized that when I started. And I think a little bit of that is because I take a knack to marketing. I like marketing. It's fun for me. Love seeing the results, looking at the reports. And I was just kind of naturally somewhere between decent and good at it, right? And I knew that it was how important it was when we had the influx of customers, making sure every customer experience was the absolute best experience that they could have, because word of mouth was going to help carry us. But from the beginning, I recognized the importance of branding, having a good brand. This is our logo. I drew this when I was 20 years old, starting the business. I drew it on, sometimes I say Canva, but truthfully, just for simplicity, but truthfully, Vistaprint had an editor where you could edit the business cards, and I would go there and make graphics for Facebook. I would just screenshot and clarify. But that's where I drew this up on Vistaprint. And that's our logo. So I recognized the importance of branding, and then started recognizing the importance of having your crew wear uniforms, which we're talking like 2-3 people at this time, but having your crew wear uniforms and just truly be professional and be on the same page on a job site. Started my Facebook page early and would post, and that's back in like that 2020. I'd say like the real transition that you're talking about is, I'd say, from 2020 to about 2022. The boost feature on Facebook, where you could set your distance and kind of your parameters on who you wanted this ad boosted to, was on fire. I mean, I could make an ad and put $20 behind it and get, like, I almost had it down to a statistic. Like, if I put $20 behind it, made this ad, I would get 5 calls. So if we were a little bit short on work, I'd see how short we were, how many calls I wanted to get, and then I'd structure the post and the boost behind that. So, it's been, you're a marketing guy, it's been greatly diluted since then, but that helped a lot, figuring that out, to keep that steady influx of work, but also recognizing that marketing isn't just a Facebook page. You make a post and you're marketing. Marketing and branding, which are different things, work together, because all of your leads come from multiple different pipelines, right? Like today, we have probably 10 to 15 different avenues that we just steadily get leads from. Some are definitely greater than others. I have One I'm looking at right here, that we got 167 calls in this past month just from that single one, which is huge. There's, a few more that just ate into that, especially with commercial municipal work, wanting to get into some more of that. We're diversifying. So at first it was the Facebook page, and then we started leaving a yard sign at every job site we would go to. And then, maybe we spammed the area a couple times with maybe 100, 200 yard signs, supposedly. I say supposedly because we're not really supposed to do that in the city. But maybe or maybe not that happened. And then, when it was raining and I knew if it was raining and I knew we didn't have like a week or two worth of work, I'd spend that entire day putting out door hangers myself, because I didn't have any income coming in. So I didn't want to put any money out to have guys go help me. So I'd spend 10, 12 hours putting out door hangers, and then, trying to figure out how to hit the most highly condensed areas to get the most out I could, and just really grinding at it. Whenever work slowed down, it was like, okay, challenge accepted, chip on my shoulder, let's go find the work. Kind of like when I started, for some reason, I just believed that I could. And so I did. That was how we transitioned out of like the storm work to regular, just everyday life work. In our area was we capitalized on the work that we did have, and then planned for knowing that this isn't going to last forever. Because that was conversations that I had with smart business owners at the very beginning. Hey, make sure that you're thinking about when this huge influx of work isn't here, how you're going to sustain. So recognizing that, being aware.
You nailed something that I think is super important, that it takes guys a really long time to figure out. One of the quotes that we have in the agency that we hold dear to us is, we paraphrase it comes from Peter Drucker, but it's marketing's not a function of the business. It's the entire business seen from the customer's point of view. And you hit on how branding is one element of that. Do I look professional? Which is hard when you're starting out, right? So the fact that you're giving thought or pause to optics, right? We're showing up with maybe not as high end of equipment, but I'm going to show up in a polo. I'm going to show up with branded equipment. I'm going to have a professional logo and establish myself to do the absolute best I can, because I know people are seeing those things. And then realizing hey, it's not just one thing. It's everything. They work together. They see your yard sign, they see your truck, they see you working in the neighborhood, right. They see your boosted post on Facebook. You're omnipresent, you're layering, and it compounds. So you can't just look at one thing and be like, yeah, the Facebook ads are the one thing that drove our business, or we did SEO and that saved us and worked forever. Because things changed. Like you said, the boosted Facebook post was anybody who's just willing to participate in the platform back in the early 2020s could get good results no matter what your business was. Nowadays, you struggle to find an ROI positive campaign at 5 to 6x for every dollar that you spend on Facebook, right? So things change. And then I think the last thing you said is really powerful, was when I didn't have money, I gritted it out. Setting yard signs out on Saturdays and picking them up on Monday mornings. Shout out to Alex, but we had him on the podcast a while ago, and he was like, yeah, I knew that the government workers who would take my stuff down didn't work weekends. So 100 go out on Friday and 100 come down on Sunday. And I'm like, it's great. Yeah, it's great, right? It's putting out those yard signs. It's when I don't have enough money to pour into an agency or into Google Ads or into Facebook, right? What can I do with my time to market? Yeah. How do I trade my time for the money that I don't have? And
it's not go to Facebook and whine about, oh, I don't have enough money to X, Y, and Z. It's saying, what can I do for free? What can I spend the least amount of money and figure out how to get something out of? In my whole career, I don't ever remember being at a point where I was like, oh, this might not be good, or this isn't going to work, or we don't have enough work, or this thing happened and it might shut us down, and just crawl into a ball and giving up, or going to Facebook. And I've gone to Facebook and ask questions. It's wonderful, but try to find the answer yourself first, right? And if you can't, then ask the question. But it's also not taking that to I'm saying Facebook of all places, because it happens there so much. But don't take it to Facebook and complain. Figure it out. Take that energy and effort and exactly what you're saying. Just figure out what you can do.
Yeah. I mean, I hate the word, you said the word free. That's the only thing I hate the word. It's not free, right? It's always an equation, opportunity cost of your time. So when you're
True.
getting started and you have no work on the calendar, the opportunity cost of your time is infinite because it's zero. You're going to go sit on the couch and get on Facebook and lament about how you don't have work. So like
Yep.
you can't be like talking to people, shaking hands, passing out door hangers. That can't be beneath you, right? You have to hustle. And then as you get bigger, the opportunity cost of your time changes. Like I'm sure where you're at today, if you're going out to hand out yard signs or put up door hangers, that should be to show the guy who's coming after you that that's an activity that needs to be done, or a passion project for you. I just need some sunshine, right? But that's probably not the best use of your time nowadays. Now that you've scaled, you have different channels and opportunities afforded to you. And so the key part of marketing is understanding, like, if getting more work is your primary constraint, like, where is my time or dollar or the absence of dollars like going to go the furthest for me in this moment? So
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that you figured that out, man. That's really awesome. Shifting gears a little bit. What's something you tried that really didn't work? Great idea at the time, not so great in practice.
I kind of talked about it already. I definitely say the 4-wheeler trailer thing. Definitely did not. That's not the way.
You ever run into anything like it could be along the lines of like hiring or maybe softwares that you tried or like a piece of equipment you bought that you thought, I mean, outside of the 4-wheel you thought was going to be awesome, or cheaping out on equipment? Anything that really just stuck out to you where it was like, seemed like a good deal, but not so in practice?
As far as equipment goes, secondhand chainsaws, just don't. just don't. No matter how good of a person they seem or with a story behind them, just don't. Been burned on secondhand chainsaws so many times. And then as far as people go, this one comes to mind. This might be a touch controversial, especially in our industry, but I took on a guy had some drug issues in the past and was trying to get his life together. And I took him on I needed help, and it was cheap help at the time, but also as a project. Like I can help fix you. I thought that I could will it enough for him to help get him straight. And I did help him a lot. I know you've heard the saying, Austin, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So I held on to that employee way too long. And it almost cost me some really, really valuable employees that I still have to this day. He was just toxic to our work environment. You know, it just diluted everything that we did. You know, nobody wanted to work around him. Just the negativity. And the thing was, he was a wonderful operator. I mean, still to this day, one of the best operators we've had through here. But I took him on as a project, and I was so invested that some of the red flags that were absolutely red flags, I just made an excuse for or ignored. It was apparent to everybody but me that I needed to let him go.
Along those lines, just jump gears. Like, what did you learn? Like, how have you internalized this moving forward in your hiring process and what you're looking for in people?
So I had a guy at the time. I still have him now. His name was Bryson. He was just part of the crew, ground crew. He had let me know that he was almost to his limit with dealing with this other gentleman that I'm talking about that had the previous problems. You know, and another thing too is I could never get him to quit smoking weed. It's not something I do, and I try to look at it the same way you look at alcohol, because it's legal now in Louisiana, and there's zero tolerance if you're high or drunk on a job site. That's it, you're done. And still, you know, it's still something that I don't like my employees to do because I've just had lots of experience with. It's just a ladder, and there's not a lot of people who do it consistently that don't end up with some of the other issues that we just don't like to deal with here, right? Trying to be as politically correct as I can with that, but anyway, back to the story with Bryson. So he had let me know he was probably going to be leaving, mainly due to this other guy. He just couldn't take it anymore, and told him I understood. And you know, it kind of came down in my mind to do I want to keep this guy or do I want to keep Bryson? Who's more important? And at the time, the guy that was causing the problems was a better operator. So I'm just thinking in terms of production, like, well, if I keep him, I'm going to get more done, but I'm going to have to deal with more BS. Finally, kind of the last straw happened. I don't need to necessarily get into the incident, but he kind of caused somewhat of an altercation. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. We're done. Go ahead and go drop the truck off, pick your truck up. I'll get you your last paycheck. This just isn't working out. One of the greatest things to happen to this business, because now Bryson, that was just a groundhead at the time, he is COO of the company. And 2 weeks ago, I spent a week helping at a church camp and didn't have to take a single phone call. And when I got back, sure, there's stuff to catch up on, but everything was handled. And everything is handled day to day, and it goes through him. So I would have lost one of my greatest employees should I have continued to hang on to my project person or somebody that I thought I could fix, or maybe I thought was a little more valuable at the time, just out of a production standpoint. So the lesson that I got out of that is to not be too emotionally tied. We are a very tight knit. So we're at 9 employees, and last year we rounded out 2.3 million. We're on track to do more than that this year, and but with a better profit margin as well. So last year was definitely still like a full growth year, like we're just pushing growth. This year we're focusing a lot on holding down the expenses, trying to grow, but also trying to grow that profit margin, right? Now we're at 9 employees, and the lesson we've taken from that is to not be too emotionally invested, not to ignore red flags. And when you have a person, no matter how much you like them or how much you want to help them, that is a toxin or a parasite to your culture, you have to let them go. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you've given the opportunity, if you've given them every opportunity to right the wrong, and they continue going back to the same things that caused the wrong in the first place, to cause the negativity, whatever it is in the first place, they're showing you their true colors, and you just have to let them go. One of the most important concepts and things that I've learned through business that will carry me into other businesses that I'm wanting to start and grow and create is you have to put your team first, your culture, your environment. You have to build an environment that people are as excited as they can be to come to work, but they're proud to come to work at. They have to make the amount of money that it takes to build a life. You can't pay somebody $15 an hour and expect them to be able to go and buy a house or a vehicle, or God forbid, if they have a family, if their kid gets sick, be able to afford the medication or whatever the kid would need. So you have to be able to provide a place so where somebody can make an income, make a good living, build a life, and somewhere that they don't absolutely hate all their coworkers and hate what they have to do and hate their job. Work is work, and hard things are always going to be hard. It sucks sometimes to get up and come to work for everybody, but if the good outweighs the bad, then you've won. That's kind of what one of the things I've tried to live by is when the good has to outweigh the bad. When creating the culture, we were super focused on creating that environment. And I'm proud to say we've had 5 employees purchase houses in the past few years. A handful of them purchase new vehicles. We have a couple employees knocking on 6 figures. We have one that's over 6 figures. So that's good wages for young guys too. I'm 26. I have one, Coby. He's older than me. He's 27, and the rest are down. Bryson, the one that runs the company, he's 20. I think he just turned 25. He was 24, just turned 25.
Amazing.
Within the last few months. But operating at the level we're operating at with young guys, I would almost rather a younger guy that I can help mold and create, and than somebody who's got it all figured out that wants to come in and they're not willing to bend or adapt to the way that we do things here, right? We went to Arizona to one of Cardone Ventures classes over there, some business classes. Very cool experience, by the way. Recommend that for anybody interested in business classes. Alex Ramosi, that's the next one I'm going to, one of his. But the Cardone Ventures, Brandon Dawson puts it on. Recommended for anybody who wants to learn about just straight business. But we were there for a couple of days, and they just kept on hammering it. Hire for attitude, train for results. Hire for attitude, train for results. And that is a very, very good quote to throw on a shirt, but also way to structure your hiring and the process. Hire for attitude, train for results. Especially in the early stages of growing a business, you're not going to be able to afford an ISA certified arborist as your climber. You're not. It just is what it is. So you have to be willing to develop your ability to coach and train people, to train somebody into that, to hire them for an attitude, for the attitude they have, for the values that they hold, and train them for the results that you want them to bring to the business. But you also have to align the business with the goals they want for themselves. We have constant communication with these guys. We do evaluations every 3 to 6 months about, and we're just sitting one-on-one with these guys saying, where do you want to be in 5 years? What is the next step for you? What do you want out of life? We have those conversations, because unless that is aligned with the business, then you're not going to get their maximum effort or their maximum ability to produce, and I want for them to want big things and stuff as well, So aligning our goals, their goals with the business goals as well is super, super important.
If you can't, and this is not, it gets missed so often, but like us as business owners, right? The reason we work for ourselves is because we would go to a corporate environment and feel suffocated there, right? We don't feel like we're progressing. A lot of times it's like fast enough, or we can't have our things or life our way,
Right.
right? And I feel that that's true for every person, just to varying degrees. You can work in a job and be excited about a job as long as you feel that you're progressing in that role, that you have something in your life to look forward to. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 6-figure promotion, but you're not going to come and show up to work with the same attitude on day one at day three if you've been making $15 an hour and you can't provide for your family over that whole period. You're going to
Right.
check out. It's only natural. And so as a business owner, we can either incentivize people, maintain our culture, and build people up over time, or we can have a revolving door of $15 an hour employees that we have to find, backfill, and replace. The
Yep.
problem is, unless your culture and your tools and everything is amazing, and somebody who just came in off the street could plug in from day one and run your equipment and do your jobs, which is not that way in tree service, and it's very dangerous to try to make it that way, then you have to retain people. They're your most valuable asset.
Yep.
And so I think it's huge that you figure that out and dialed it in so early. And I can tell just because the guy you promoted from the ground crew runs your company now. That's
Okay.
rags to riches story, man. Another thing I have to ask, like, doesn't it feel good to provide for the people in your company? Like, when you had a beaming smile on your face, a point of pride when you're talking about these guys that bought houses, these guys that bought cars, like they're making more money, like you're pulling other people up with you. Like, talk about that. How does that feel? What's that experience been for you as a business owner?
I don't think good explains it well. I think a fitting word is rewarding. It is absolutely rewarding to be able to provide an environment that people can build lives on, and that they can grow with the company as the company grows. When I make decisions, big decisions for this company, I'm not making the decision for me, what I want. I'm making the best decision that is going to be the best decision for the 9 employees' incomes that I'm responsible for. I'm responsible for them and all of their families as well. So I'm making decisions for everybody, small things to big things. We pay for the guys' health insurance. We have health, dental, and vision insurance now, which has just happened within the last 2 to 3 years. And that's we have a couple guys having babies and stuff. That's something that came up. They went from a single guy to married and having babies, and that's an important part of life. Will my company be able to offer that? And we took that into consideration. Ran the numbers and figured out that we could, and that's another incentive for guys to work here. Rewarding, I think, is the best fitting word. I mean, it's absolutely rewarding. That's what I'm most proud of. I think that we're able to provide that and grow people. I think that's one of my favorite things that I get to do, and aid in that growth. It's not about the money in the bank account for me. You know, up to this point, there's been people in my company that have made more money than me. We tax ourselves as an S corp, and I pay myself a salary. And for the longest time, my salary was just enough to cover my bills, because I wanted everything that I earned to go back into growing this business. And it's the only way that we've made it to the point we have. The only way. It's been tight quite a few times. Luckily, we don't have a lot of those issues anymore, and I'm able to take a little bit better salary than bare minimum. But yeah, rewarding to be able to provide that for the guys, definitely.
Do you find that we always talk about, you even mentioned it, you're maximizing, this year has been about more maximizing the profitability of your company rather than growing the top line revenue. How do you reconcile then taking on all these extra expenses to provide these benefits for your employees? Like, isn't that eating into the profitability of your company?
Yeah, I'd say so. But what's more expensive? Is it the revolving door and having to retrain people, or is it doing what it takes to provide them a good living and to keep them? Because there's been a lot of statistics come out about, it almost takes the employee that asked for the raise that would leave if you said no cost twice as much because of the revenue lost than just giving them that raise. Now, that's not a one-liner to say every employee needs to go to their employer and demand a raise. That's just putting in perspective of how valuable the time and effort we put into training our employees is. I think it's a testament to that, especially if they're a good fit for the company, and maybe if they do come have that conversation, they want to grow. Like you can't hire somebody for an attitude, somebody with ambition, and then punish them for having that ambition, right? So if they come to you and they want to grow, and it's a good, honest conversation, then why can't I sit down and figure out what next level they need to get to bring the business to the next level in profitability to be able to pay them that, right? I'm a firm believer in value, in the idea of the value you bring to a company should be reciprocated. And we have certain incentive ways to incentivize the guys to where they want to go knock on a neighbor's door and see if they have any tree work they might need done. Or I mean, you hit the nail on the head earlier when you said you incentivize the guys to stay and work and want to do more.
Yeah, I think that's valuable advice for some guys. Ty, like, what are some programs or structures for incentivization that you think have really worked for you? Maybe you could share with some of the people listening to the podcast. Or
So this is one of this what I'm about to talk about is one of the ones that's been the most beneficial for us. But I don't think it's something that's like a super, and it could be. We just haven't figured out how to make it a long-term thing. We did it twice and it worked wonderfully, and we haven't done it this past year. At the time, we had probably a crew of 5, Bryce. So we probably had 5 employees in the field on a crew. Okay. The problem that I was trying to solve is tools keep getting broken that should not be broken. Tools were getting left. We don't have somebody coming at the end of a job to check and make sure all the tools were grabbed. Just little silly and really inconvenient damages. So I brainstormed on this for weeks, and I said, okay, how can we fix this? You can't. It's not legal to deduct if an employee breaks a chainsaw. You can't deduct that from that employee. I don't want to anyway. I've done a good job at separating myself of the business. I work for the business. I'm not the business, right? So when they break a chainsaw, I don't take it personally. Like, oh my gosh, you took that money out of my pocket. You're hurting the business. A little side note there. But we had a chainsaw get run over. That is negligent, right? That chainsaw should not have been put there. The operator should have known it was there. I mean, the biggest fix is just not putting a chainsaw anywhere a skid steer can go, right? So, I mean, it can literally just be as simple as that. That's negligence. You're running the chainsaw and it blows, the piston blows up for no reason at all. The right gas was in it. You were doing what you were supposed to be doing. It just blew up. That's not negligence. That's just part of the trade. It's just part of the job. Every job, you have wear and tear, and that's one of the things that happens with tree work, right? Chainsaws just give up sometimes. That's not negligent. So we distinguished what is something that's negligent and what is not something that's negligent. I calculated back in 2024, we had about $30,000 worth of lost tools, damages, some negligent, some maybe not, but about $30,000 of things that just had to be replaced, fixed, or bought for a silly reason. I was like, this is unacceptable. Like, it's $30,000 that could literally just be in our pocket. This isn't because, for the most part, this isn't just because saws blow up. This is because we're not taking care of our stuff. So I said, okay, let's see if we can put that $30,000 or at least most of it back in our pocket. I said, okay, guys, I'm setting aside $10,000. And I didn't have $10,000 just sitting in an account to set aside. I just knew that over the course of a year, they were going to damage $30,000 worth of stuff. So I knew it would add up, right? So in 6 months, I should have $15,000 if they quit damaging stuff. So I'm going to set aside $10,000, and that is going to be y'all's crew bonus. You will split it evenly across the crew, okay? $10,000 divided by 5 is $2,000 a piece. That's a pretty healthy little bonus. But every tool that's negligently damaged, everything that's left on a job site will be deducted from the $10,000 bonus. But it's not going to be deducted from you individually. It's going to be deducted from the bonus pool. So every time somebody breaks something, it's crew accountability, right? You're holding yourself and everybody else around you accountable. That's the culture I was trying to instill with tools specifically. And then I took it one step further. Before I implemented it, I was like, we have those one or two guys that are always 2 minutes late, 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late. And there was nothing I could do to fix it. Threaten the fire, threaten to deduct half a day, So I said, and every minute that you're late will be calculated at $5 a minute coming out of the bonus pool. So now if you're late, you're not taking from just yourself, you're taking from the people around you as well. So promotes self-accountability. And if I have a guy on the crew, if I'm working the crew and this guy's always late, that's money out of my pocket, I'm going to say something. It doesn't have to be rude. It doesn't have to be negative. Hey, do you want me to call you at this time in the morning so that we can make sure you're up? Because I don't want to keep losing money, and I know you don't either. There's no reason we can't be on time. When I tell you one of the greatest programs we ever put into place, it was insane, the shift of maintenance and upkeep. And we had a guy volunteer to go through at the end of a job site and walk the whole thing and check for tools at the end of every job site. The other thing that was included in negligent damages is if the climber cut something from up high and it damaged a fence picket, the money it costed to fix that fence picket was taken out of the bonus pool. Because if there was not a way for us to cut that piece down without damaging something, we should not have cut it. We should have got a crane. Something else should have been different. We assumed that as negligent when it could have been avoided. Now, if it's a freak accident, if you drop this piece and it something flies across and hits a board that's on the ground, it swings into a pinball machine, and then it lands on the fence. Okay, that's just kind of final destination stuff. We're not counting that, right? Which there's not much of that anyway. But that also got taken out of the deduction. So when we got to that 6 month period, I think they were at like between $7,000 and $8,000. They got to split between themselves. So amazing. From the year before, we were at $15,000 in 6 months, and we brought that down to maybe $3,000 in damages, and simultaneously created a culture of self and crew accountability. And we created a culture where it's cool to be early. That's carried us. Now, we did that the beginning from January to June of 25, and then from June to December. And then a lot of shifts and changes happened in 26, so we didn't re-up that program. But to this day, we have guys that are 30 minutes to an hour early to the office because it's cool to be early. And with growth comes office and paperwork starts becoming more important. So whenever somebody's late, they get a warning, and then it's an immediate write-up. So I think we've had maybe one write-up, maybe two write-ups this year. And we're talking like a couple minutes late, but you got to draw a line in the sand somewhere, right? So that's where it is for us. And that's really helped the habitually late people not be late.
So many cool things of what you said. I love the carrot and the stick. That's something I coach on quite a bit when I'm talking with guys, is the best, it's great to have a carrot. It's great. The most common form of enforcement is the stick, right? The negative punishment, but it's the most powerful when you can incorporate both. You've incorporated the positive benefit, but then you also have the stick for your repeat or extreme offenders. The other thing this does is going back to what we were talking about culture, you're self-policing your culture. It's not you as the leader, the big bad cracking down on everybody. Right. If some guy's chronically late killing the bonus pool, then the entire crew is calling for his head, right? And he's either going to change his behavior or very quickly ostracize his own way out of the company. It would just be natural at that point that he's not a good fit for the team, for the culture, et cetera. And that person can find a better opportunity, right? Somewhere else where they fit in, that fits their lifestyle, their culture, and their vibe, I guess, generally. Right. And somebody else can step up into that role on your team, or you can provide a new opportunity for somebody else just going to think that this is the best job ever. This is the team that I jive with. There's a balance between being operationally heavy-handed and not being operationally tight, fit, or sound at all. One of the good sweet spots is where you don't have to document every single aspect of your process, but the process is mentally created by the culture. So
Right.
like positive actions become tribal behavior among the team, right? And that's where you're like, hey, I don't need a safety or post-job checklist to check the job. I have guys volunteering, raising their hand to go check the job and clean up the
Right.
tools because they have incentive to do so. So now it's not so rigid where like if the job looks very different than jobs they've done in the past, right? Or the checklist isn't a one-for-one fit because we brought some new tools onto the job that maybe we didn't
Right.
update our SOP to account for. They're still looking out for it, right? I know this is going to come out of the bonus pool. I know there's some stuff that I don't know. So let me think about that and go through and take my time and be extra careful.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And then to your point, like you can definitely put these processes in play. Like, yes, this is an act of God industry. Yes, the fence is going to get clipped. Yes, something's going to get messed up. But then at the point, like you have the discretion, the team has the discretion to come and be like, yeah, we're accountable for this. It should come out of the bonus pool, or like this is just act of God. Like you can come to an agreement and add that money back in. Like you don't have to be super rigid about that either. It's not the point.
And one thing too, and I mentioned this before we ever got on the podcast. I'm very transparent, open, super clear. I created a shared note that everybody shared between us, and I was the only one allowed to edit it. And when there was a damage or something taken off, like it was. Like I told them, like, hey, this is how much this cost, or this was forgotten. And it went on there. So I also put the visual aspect in it too, to where they saw $10,000 at the top, minus $200 for X, minus $500 for this ball getting crushed, right? So they got this like in real time, see it getting deducted. So it wasn't like, oh, I wonder where we're at. Go look. You know, they have it. They had it on their phone.
Hall of shame. Who's the inverse employee of the month?
Yep. Yep, and we had one too. We all knew who it was, and he had to tighten up ship, you know. And I originally prefaced what I was saying. You know, we haven't done that in this past year. We've had a lot of growth and a lot of transition, you know. And I'm thinking maybe it was 24 that I'm thinking of, not 25, because we haven't done that since we got into this office, which was like January, February of 25, and we were still working out of my house and box trailer. So tools lived between the box trailer, and then like we had sets of tools for each truck. So now it's just a little different now. We don't work out of a box trailer anymore. Tools mainly live at the shop. You know, we have a tool specific truck that pulls our lift. So it just looks different, and I hadn't quite figured out if that same system would work. I'm thinking it's just a little bit different, which is why we hadn't implemented it. But I mean, we're still seeing the ripple effect of what that did even a year and a half, 2 years ago throughout the crew. But that's also a testament to like recognize where you're at and adapt and change to that. Like that's what worked for us then, and I think something a little different works for us now. You know?
Yeah, it has to be fluid. It's going to change, and I don't think that it's not like it's going to all at once evaporate. The culture that you've created around those things definitely, I'm assuming, still exists, regardless of the fact that the incentive that once existed has now gone away or looks different. Shifting gears, we want to give Just Desserts. Ty, remember the ATCP. Why did you join the ATCP? What does the organization mean to you? Why do you think it's important? Talk to me about that a little bit. Like, why are you here today?
The ATCP specifically, or can I talk about Joe's class a little bit too?
You could talk about Joe's class, you know, if that's what drove you kind of to join and why you decided to be involved. Yeah, tell us the story.
I think it was 23 when I took Joe's class. I recognized that when you get to the point in business, not even just tree business, any business, that you think you've got it all figured out and there's not much to learn and you just got to do the work or whatever, you've hit a failure point. You know, I recognized that I don't have it all figured out, and I wanted to learn from people that were smarter than me. And at the time, I had seen this guy on Facebook talking about insurance work and this and that, and I could not for the life of me find anybody who was fluid in insurance work. What I set out to do was, how do I bill for insurance when tree hits house? Because I hear people say, oh, we'll bill your insurance directly, but I don't know what it means. I don't know how to do it. Do I communicate with them? There was nothing around it, you know. I saw that there was the class, it was in Destin, Florida, and it was $2,500, and it was the emergency tree responders class put on by Joe Whitledge. And I was like, you know what? They seem to know what this insurance stuff is. I had kind of paid attention to him. I had him followed on Facebook and was watching what he was saying, what Joe was saying, and then some of the conversations, Mark Russell. So I was watching these guys talk about insurance work and this and that, but I did better in an in-person setting, and here's an in-person class, and I'm going to go. So I went, and I mean, it totally blew open my mind. I was like, this guy knows what he's talking about. Above everything else, what I love about Joe is his morality. I love that he holds himself to super high moral standards and operates his business that way and teaches his class that way. Because I feel like I do hold myself to very high character, moral standards, and that's how I want to do business. So that was one of the immediate things that drew me to the class and helped me weed through all the bull, the nonsense that was going on in the emergency tree response world. You know, there was some stuff that went on with Justin Hartman. I'm sure anybody that's been around for long enough has heard, or at least partially heard a bit about that story and stuff. And there was just some ill practices being practiced, and I did not want to be that way. So I went to the class, blew me open on the knowledge and what this could become, and that I could literally position myself as a 24/7 emergency tree removal specialist and be confident in building the insurance and be confident what I was telling the customers, be confident in understanding what would be covered for insurance work. I was hooked and just wanted to learn more and more and more. It's funny because November, December, it was later in the year when I went to that class, and like everybody that does tree work knows, it's super seasonal. So money wasn't just pouring in from every angle at the time. So $2,500 plus travel to Florida and back. You know, I'm in Louisiana, so it's 18 hours away for me. It's pretty hefty. You know, the weekend cost me about $4,000, but I saw the value and I trusted that I would get that value back out. When I got home, I got a call in Florida that I actually stepped out of the class and took. Tree hit took out the weatherhead and hit a fence. You know, hey, yeah, absolutely. I'll have a guy go over there and take a look at it. And I was coming home the next day, and we'll be there soon, whatever. Well, went back in the class, finished the class up, and throughout the class, I was like, oh, that's type B coverage. This should be covered under this. So, you know, made the drive home, and I don't even think I went home. I think I went straight to his house and looked at it, and with some Mark Russell's help, he was there. I met him on the contract. We set up the contract, billed it how we were supposed to bill it, spoke to the insurance company. It was paid within 30 days. I want to say it was within 3 weeks. It was paid. That was $17,000. So not only did I pay for my class, I mean, I tripled what I spent, you know, going and to get this information. And it was $17,000 that I wouldn't have charged before, not because it wasn't worth it, but because I didn't recognize the value we actually bring to a customer to truly mitigate the damage, mitigate further damage, the equipment, the experience, the knowledge, the insurance, all of it, you know. And it's been a ladder ever since. And that was even before the ATCP had become a thing. Fast forward, I think it was the beginning of this year, I brought my estimator to another class. I did the class again, probably got just as much information this time as I did the first time, just with stuff that I maybe forgot or overlooked or whatever. Really got him involved, my estimator involved with how to do that kind of stuff and everything. And I know I'm talking about more the emergency tree work and the insurance work than ATCP, but what got me to sign up for ATCP is this the community around that backs Joe. I back Joe, and the idea why the ATCP was created, the morality behind it, and the fact that the ATCP recognizes that we're all professionals in the same trade, and we all want to grow and do better. And I feel like it was created out of a place of wanting better. And that's what drew me to sign up. Stefano LeBlanc has helped me multiple times. Just had simple questions in Louisiana, we have an organization called the Louisiana Arborist Association. And it was a big thing back in the 90s, early 2000s, but it kind of faded out. And, you know, we have to do continued education classes every year. Louisiana Department of Ag was kind of not putting on the best classes. It was felt throughout the entire arborist community that it just wasn't the best, and there was a need. And Louisiana Arborist Association has plugged that need to where they set up classes that actually gave arborists information they needed that was helpful, up to date, and just overall great classes. And I was invited to be a board member of the LAA, and me and Joe and Stefano, Alex Shy, and there were a couple other members that did a Zoom call with me and the chair of the LAA, just talking about how can the LAA get with the ATCP, and how can we help you and how can you help us, and how can we grow this industry to be better together, and just the humility for them to hop on that call with us, because it's an organization that was a thing and it's kind of died down, and we're trying to make it into a good thing again. But that's just another thing, just their willingness to help, even whenever it doesn't benefit them. It's a good neighbor, it's a good Christian. I think that's what God wants for us in this life, is to help somebody else and not expect something in return. To do it just out of goodwill, just because we want the best for someone else. From Louisiana, I'm a Catholic, born and raised, cradle Catholic, and one of the things that gets talked about a lot is and thrown around is the word love. People say they love this bag of chips and they love this movie and they love this and that, but to truly break it down, love is willing the good of another. So it's not funny, it's not uncool, it's not embarrassing to love your brother, to love my employees, to love other people enough to will the best for them, to will good for them, and to provide anything that you can to help bring that to them, right? I think the ATCP, I might get laughed at, snickered at a bit, but I think it was created out of a place of love, and for the industry and for individual arborists, and to grow everyone and to help everyone be better.
I know I will speak for Joe and the board and the rest of the members of ATCP. It's not in any way, shape, or form below us to step in and help. And the work that you're doing with the Arborist Association down there in Louisiana, like to establish standards, to put the ladder, like you and I are talking about, to put the ladder down for those who are coming after you, to share your knowledge, to love the industry, your neighbor, your brothers, etc. Like, thank you for that. And that is really like what the mission and the ethos of the ATCP is to establish good practices, to establish standards, to train, and to help everybody else come up, and provide the knowledge and resources that didn't previously exist, that all of us have kind of tried to cobble together or taken and begged and borrowed and found in many nooks and crannies, and hopefully spare some others painful mistakes, because we work in a really dangerous industry. Absolutely. The work that we do can be life-threatening. It's important. So thank you for your contribution, your work there as well. Ty, you've been very generous with your time, so we're going to move into lightning round.
What you got for me?
Chainsaw brand of choice.
Stihl,
all the way?
Notice there was no hesitation.
You use buckets or climbers more? What do you think's better?
We use more. So I actually have the Dyno 92 RXT, specialty arborist lift, as we like to call it. We use that mostly. But Coby also climbs. So just depending on the job, the situation, we have the ability to do both.
Coffee or energy drinks?
Good nutrition and hydration.
Ooh, he's no caffeine guy.
No, it doesn't do much for me.
On a completely different level. Would you do anything differently now if you had to go back? Anything you would change? Rewrite the story?
I've thought about that a lot. That's something that gets asked a lot. There was a book by C.S. Lewis, and to be honest, I didn't read the book. I just I got a quote out of it, and it's been something that stuck with me, and I think this fits well here. It basically talks about how the past and the future is something the devil wants you to focus on, because there's regret in the past and anxiety in the future. What ifs? What could I have done better? What could be better? And it's from the devil is the idea. And the present is where God lives and where God wants us to focus, because that's where grace is and that's where grace can happen. So to answer your question without sounding like a know-it-all guru, no, I wouldn't do anything differently. Everything that I've done has a culmination of what's built this here and what has sustained it. And I think to do it any differently, I wouldn't learn as much. Failure is an opportunity to grow. So without as much failure, without as much mistakes, I wouldn't be in the position I am. And I'm happy with where we're at, and I'm excited to continue making mistakes and figuring things out, as we grow. So no, I don't think I'd do it any differently.
Building on that then, Ty, you can bring us home. What's one piece of advice to guys who are just starting out, in their tree care businesses that you would give? that they should focus on, something that you feel is really important?
It's almost a trend nowadays to get caught up in. I made a video about this on our social media page, and we got some love and we got some hate for it too, but we call them the must be nice guys. Guys that sit there, see something, and just take the all-star image of what they think this thing is. You know, guys might look at me and say, oh, he's got trucks and he's got equipment, he's got this and that, must be nice. They don't see what it took to get here. They don't see all of the hardships and the failure, the times that, you know, we didn't think we were going to make payroll and had to pull money out of a personal savings account. Or, you know, I never had been somebody that really had anxiety or anything like that. And I developed for a short period of time, I developed anxiety attacks just because of all the issues we had going on at work at the time. And it just, for my wife to find me, I'm not too proud to say, I mean, for my wife to find me in one of the spare rooms of our house, just kind of sitting against the wall, trying to cry it out. It's pretty eye opening. And the guys that throw the must be nice out there don't see that. They don't realize that. But my advice is, don't be one of those people. Don't be a must be nice guy. You know, don't just assume that somebody just hasn't made. You know what? Some people do just haven't made. Cool. But you know what? They'll never appreciate, not to the level that a person who is self-made can do it on their own. They'll never appreciate what they have near as much. And be glad for that. Be glad that you have the opportunity to become self-made. Overall, understand that it's hard. Everything in life that is worth having will be hard. Choose your hard. I tell you what, it's a lot harder being broke and being negative and not and laying in bed when I really should be at work and sitting on the couch when I really should be doing this or that. That's hard too. It sucks. Things that are hard at work and things that are worth doing, they feel a lot less hard once you make it to the other side. You know, is it gonna suck and be worth it, or is it just gonna suck? You know, choose your hard is the overall place that I'm trying to bring it back to. Is it's all hard. It's hard to be a 9-to-5 employee. It's hard to be a business owner. It's all hard. Choose your hard. You know, what do you want? Where do you want to go? Choose your hard.
I love it. Ty, thank you, brother, for joining us today. Thanks for hopping in the Canopy with me. It's been amazing. Hopefully we can chat some more soon and we get you back on here sometime shortly. But thank you for all your time today. Your advice and your story is amazing. So appreciate you sharing it.
Absolutely. Thank you for everything y'all do for the ATCP, and I'm looking forward for the future to come.